5 minutes.
Thank the Chairman for calling the hearing. Chairman Hensarling has had really a laser focus on the issue of the national debt since he took the chairmanship, which is really important given, the challenges in this town. And I agree that when I came here in the class of 2010, there was an awful lot of focus on spending, debts, deficit, and the like. Not so much anymore as issues sort of evolve around us, as Dr. Rivlin said in her opening comments. There's not as much attention today, although earlier this morning, the Peter G. Peterson Foundation issued a press release that says Americans remain troubled by long-term fiscal outlook. Only 29% of Americans say the country is headed in the right direction in addressing our national debt, with 59% believing the country is heading on the wrong track. It goes on to say voters are deeply concerned about America's long-term fiscal challenges. And although I don't hear it as much as I used to, I still hear it when I go back into my district in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Mr. Chairman, these letters have all been received in my office since January of this year, and they're all about the national debt, and I would ask that they be submitted as part of the record if I could.
Without objection.
Appreciate that. The interesting thing about these letters is that every one of them was written by a teenager concerned about the national debt. Alex Frischman of Newtown, which is in the Council Rock School District, a great school district in south central Bucks County, wrote to me in February. He said, this enormous debt that our country is experiencing is depressing growth right now. For Americans, this means fewer jobs, lower incomes, and depressed behaviors and attitudes. I believe if our nation will continue to go deeper into debt, unemployment rates will continue to increase, and businesses in our country will feel the effects. Tia Faris in January wrote that, I'm worried because interest costs on debt takes away from the United States government spending on important things like education. I'm especially worried about how increasing the national debt will affect future generations, including mine, because we will be paying off the debt and the interest for the spending by others today. I believe forcing future generations to pay for debt created today is not fair, because we were not the ones to cause our country to go into debt. And we've had a great discussion here today in the hearing about debt to GDP and ratios and baselines, but there's a whole moral question as well that all of us need to address and need to think about as we go about making the important decisions. And I would ask each of you, if you would, if Alex were here or Tia were here, what would you say to them about the future of their country?
I would say I think their letters are right on the money, and I wish they would write to all the other teenagers in the country to do the same thing, because they're absolutely right. They're the ones that are going to be the most affected by this and the ones who are going to inherit all the problems that we're creating.
Dr. Rivlin?
I agree, and I do think it's a moral issue, but it isn't a simple issue. We really have to work through this problem in a bipartisan way.
I'm deeply concerned that we will default on the traditional commitment to leave behind an economy that's larger and stronger and a nation that's more secure, because we will not take care of these problems. And I think that's a tremendous immorality visited on future generations.
I hope that they maintain that level of insight as they grow up. Those are some very precocious constituents you have there.
Elise McMenamin suggests removing baseline budgeting from annual federal budgets permanently. The theory is that you start with a baseline, you increase each and every year. Any thoughts on removing baseline budgeting? Dr. Bernstein?
I think baselines are, we have a couple of former CBO directors up here. I think it's become incredibly confusing. There are numerous baselines, and I think the average person, even if they wanted to, would have a very hard time making sense of this. So somehow we have to do a better job of explaining it. Sometimes I think it would be good if we occasionally thought about zero-based budgeting, where we actually built the budget from the ground up and looked at every piece of it with a more careful eye.
About Dr. Eakin?
I'm not a big fan of zero-based budgeting because realistically that's almost impossible to do. There are lots of improvements that can be made to the baseline budgeting, so build a better baseline, don't throw it out.
Okay.
I agree with that. You have to start from where you are, and you need to know where you are.
Yield back. Thank you.
The time is the gentleman.